All right, well, good morning and welcome to our webinar, How the World's Largest Hotel Chain Unlocked Profits. My name is Sarah Lynn Bruner and I will be your host for today. And today's presenter is Manish Mistry. Manish, our resident mobile IoT guru, brings in 20+ years of technology and management experience to InfoStretch. His extensive background delivering and managing all phases of mobile and IoT development, testing, and certification enables him to create solutions for our customers that help them launch products, services, and content into the mobile IoT arena. Let's welcome Manish.
Good morning, folks. This is Manish Mistry from InfoStretch. It's a very sunny morning from California. It's live right now, so let's talk about one use case.
Great, thank you, Manish. Before we get started, though, we're going to talk about the housekeeping items. So first, this webcast is being recorded and will be distributed via email to you, allowing you to share it with your internal teams or watch it again later. Second, your line is currently muted. Third, please feel free to submit any questions during the call by utilizing the chat function on the bottom of your screen. We'll answer all questions towards the end of the presentation. We'll do our best to keep this webinar to the 30-minute time allotment. And at this time, we're going to hand it over to you, Manish.
All right, so let's talk about one of the large use cases which we have solved for big industry like hotel, where we have extensively used IoT to generate new mechanisms of revenue for that industry, as well as how we can use technologies to give one of the best user experience and customer experience from the hotel industry side, so that anybody who has used hotel knows how painful it is and how seamlessly we can make it happen. I assume everyone has gone through good or bad scenarios when you checked in into hotel, when you have asked for some help. Now, this industry is poised to change the whole ecosystem, how we use technology, how we can use technology to make and simplify the use cases, which are of very, very simple in nature, but always complex to implement. So what I would like to talk about is a couple of things before we start. Imagine a hotel industry having multiple branches, or their buildings are in various locations, each hotel having multiple rooms. So whenever we think of a solution, right, we have to think of the scalability of it. And at the same time, when we talk about user experience, the people could be of various nature from various regions. So we have to also keep that in mind. When we think from that perspective, the whole dynamics of doing a proof of concepts to the enterprise grade solution or an industrial solution, you have to think of, so that robustness, it plays a key role in it. At the same time, how one can come out of the lab mode to a production mode also changes, right? So to keep that in mind, it's very important that how we deal in designing a solution, at the same time how we can see to it that we can scale, maintain, support, and monitor on a constant basis. So there are two types of scenarios which are happening. One is behind the scene, right? What we call it, how optimized we can do the logistics of the hotel industry. On the other hand, there is a front end, which is what we call it a user experience, right? Which is impacting a person who is the customer and trying to do the, I would say, from check-in perspective till day-to-day activity which you would like to see as a user, how seamless that experience becomes. So let's look at first the front end or the user experience scenario. There will be separate webinar for the back-end system, because that's also a very complex scenario which we'd like to address. But let's today look from the front-end perspective. So the way we try to solve this is, there are problems when you log in, when you check in, right? When you check in into any hotel, I don't think any seamless place I've seen, any place I've seen a seamless experience where user is able to check in without having some of the other problems, right? So when traditional check-in systems have not worked, right? So it's the whole industry is trying to say, how can I identify the person? How can I give the person a seamless experience that I know that person is entering my hotel. As soon as the person enters the hotel, how can he or she would get automatic check-in. They can go straight to their rooms because they have the room in their hand, which is their mobile phone, which is being the hub of it, right? At the same time, everyone must have experienced that sometimes your room keys work, they don't work. The air condition temperature is not correct the way you want it. At the same time, I mean, everything is around, oh, you take something and you pay for it. And then those experiences are not a great experience. So what we try to do as a team together is that, of course, we have done a tremendous amount of research and taken tons of interview, what would work, what would not. From that, we have tried to come up with how we can create a wallet system, which we can, your phone being your hub, which will help you create a centralized experience which is in your hand to tackle these situations. Now, of course, there are many different types of technologies available. So there are different challenges. Let's say, how can you open a lock with your phone? Of course, that's another one. There's how can you use your phone as a payment machine? How can you use your phone as a controller for air conditioning, right? So, or the heater for that matter. So there are many different solutions available in the market, which we have to either build it from scratch or take off the shelf and see whether that solution we can scale it to the large scale we require. So if you look at as a solution, multiple things we want to tackle from one simple your mobile phone, right? So from access control till your smart room control, right? Till how can you do the payment very seamlessly, right? At the same time, how can you do check-in into the hotel seamlessly? There are multiple ways we have tried this. We have tried to do, you can check in on your own or check out on your own from the phone, but we are also trying to put smart concepts. So as soon as you are within the location of the hotel, we know who you are in case you have registered with us at various avenues. We can find out who you are, what are your preferences. At the same time, we can give you and do automatic check-in for you based on your past history. Believe it or not, everyone has their own patterns, right? And this smart check-in process identifies your patterns based on which it actually keeps your room ready. For example, you'd like to have a temperature at, let's say, 70 degrees. As soon as you check in into the hotel, the room temperature becomes, or it at least tries to maintain to 70 degrees, so that as soon as you enter the room, it becomes the right aha moment, you can get it into the room. It actually will turn on the favorite music. So those concepts are already in place. We have already done this. So custom experience per user is extremely important. When we have created this wallet ecosystem from your phone, we try to address most of the scenarios. Now, on the other hand, many times rental car is also an important aspect when you are trying to use hotel. So many places there are on-site rental places, which is already taken care, where you at the push of a button on your phone, you can actually rent a car. And actually it gets ready as soon as we know from your pattern, or you early intimidate when it can be ready, right? Now, so look at from the wallet ecosystem perspective, we try to merge right user experience from access control till check-in, till rental car, till on-premise shopping, till your in-room shopping. Now, on an average, every room has close to 20 to 30 different sensors, which actually is making these things happen. Now, integrating all these things together is not easy. Some are off-the-shelf solution. At the same time, some are we had to create on our own. So the philosophy we used is um, try fast, fail fast, right? So you try it out, any new use case, see to it that it is, you put the different parameters and see whether that use case is scalable. If it doesn't, then we try another system or another way mechanism and see whether that can be scalable or not. Next, I would like to see what are the different activities we had to do. So what we did is we tried to match, right, these to the network protocol 7 layers we have. The nature of the work is on an average around 2 years life cycle. Now, so it means you have to put some methodology to this madness. How do we make it happen? So when we, what we try to do is from first layer, which is a sensor layer, right? So we try to identify many different types of sensors available in the market, right? Of course, that's not one area one wants to go with. You want to make it happen on your own. Of course, we had to do tons of industrial sensors as well. At the same time, we had to do the normal, typical sensors, but they had to be, of course, industry grade. At the same time, can we scale it? So I'll give you an example why the whole this system had to be scalable is important. When we are talking about hundreds of hotels and hundreds of rooms per hotel, the extrapolation of problems can increase dramatically. And as we say, high-tech world has high-tech problem, right? So there's always going to be some problem which we'll have to see to it. Can we monitor it? Can we support it? At the same time, can we tackle it remotely, right? So when we looked at those perspectives, we had to decide, will my solution which is available in the market is going to cater to that? If not, do I have to build it? So as a second layer, that becomes a very, very important question which we have to answer, where some of the things we had to build on our own because there was no solution outside which would cater to all the requirements we had put it up. Now, saying that will my system become scalable by the nature of doing on your own? So it means we had to involve additional external vendors who can build it for us based on our designs. So that brought another complexity to the whole process. Now, after these, of course, there are, as you know, in most of the IoT world, there are different protocols, right, on which all the systems are working. So the number 3 and number 4 layers becomes very important as an interaction layer and a communication layer, where we had to bring and bridge the gap of different protocols, complexity along with their payloads. So that becomes another challenge which we had to solve it as an implementation. So we went by the whole platform approach. At the same time, we went through a little bit of ready-made solutions which helped us craft this together. Now, on top of that, of course, how we can do a security on top of it, how we can do a solutions on top of it, how we can do a smart use cases on top of it. So from that perspective, number 5, number 6, and number 7 are the layers which we had to address and see how the use cases map from layer 1 till layer 7 in entirety, rather than just looking at a application layer or just at a platform layer, right? Now, when you create a methodology like this as a layers, it helps us guiding every sprint, every implementation in the right fashion, and it creates a whole thought process around thinking end to end. Now, there are 2 different life cycles we had to go through in parallel. One is which was the whole engineering based embedded product development life cycles. So that had a different stream of work. At the same time, on the other side of the world, we had the system development life cycle, right? Now, when you have two different streams going on, and they, as a large-scale use case, which is transpiring from both the streams, the product management as well as the project management was a mammoth task, having multiple vendors also, right? So combining them together is one of the challenge which we as infrastructure had tackled it seamlessly to make this project a very successful. Now let's look at the activity metrics, right? So what are the things we had to do from embedded development lifecycle till software development lifecycle in entirety? Now, of course, we had to work with business to identify all the scenario, not just with business. At the same time, we work with the end users. What would they like to see? What would they like to experience? When we are going from traditional model to the new generation model, it becomes extremely hard to find out what would help people get the best experience, especially when they've never experienced it. Some are table stakes. For example, can I have voice activated temperature control? That becomes a table stake nowadays, having Alexa and other systems so powerful. At the same time, the new generation concept which people may like, we may not like. For example, we have a smart mirror concept within the hotel, where one can go and see their alerts when they are in the bathroom getting ready for their work or whatever the scenario. Now, some people like those kind of concepts, some people don't like those concepts, right? But when you want to give an experience, you have to give the complete flexibility, whether they would want to opt in or they don't want to opt in. They want to share, they don't want to share. So those kind of concepts which becomes part of it, and when we are defining functional requirements, it transpires into the end-to-end architecture, how we want to tackle those scenarios. Now, device functional requirements are generated from this, which are of end-to-end in nature, not just doing that, yes, the POC works, right? As I mentioned, can I monitor them remotely? Do I know if they are failing? Because if you had to maintain hundreds of thousands of sensors in different hotels, it becomes a mammoth task as a maintenance itself. So when we went through the hardware specification, firmware specification, we had to keep that in mind. Do I have capability of early alerts in case things are not working? Do I have a capacity to put futuristic self-healing concept in case the hardware is powerful enough? Can I scale and change the firmware remotely, right? A lot of people must be knowing that now Tesla does that, where you can change your car software remotely. Similarly, here we have to bring those concepts while doing this solutioning. Now, when we went through the whole product design at the same time, which is more user-centric experience, how can we think of robustness? How can we see to it that they're practically non-existent to the end users? It has to become a seamless experience. It cannot be that I have to do many steps or many things to make it activate that function. To give you an example, I am entering a hotel. Can it check in on its own, right? If I had opt-in for it, right, I don't have to do anything. The system should recognize me. System should actually do everything for me and give me a seamless experience. Multiple technologies were used to design this, at the same time implement it, but it is extremely a successful scenario if you adopt in to make it give a seamless check-in experience. Similarly, other types of scenarios are, I am at this is a large hotel complex. I am at this area and I want food. Can somebody deliver me the food, or do I have to go to the restaurant in the hotel? Now that concept is also implemented where you can be anywhere and food can be delivered to you. Now this can be multiple technology based solution where we have to use beacons till wireless functions till identifying where you are with complex algorithms. But today that is possible. Now these are the type of concepts and designs we had to bring in together as part of this. Now, second phase immediately was how do we do prototyping? Now, this is where we as a team came with a mini hotel in our office. We call it as a lab, right? Where we implemented most of the scenario within our lab we call it a lab as a service concept, where we brought all the things together and see to it that we get a seamless experience as what an end user would like to have it within our lab. There are multiple iterations by this whole development happened, including bringing the right customer base and try it out. At the same time, constant changing and managing the churn of technology upgrades we had to go through to make it happen. Now, second phase, of course, as we upgraded from prototyping, we created different streams of development and integration. Every hotel brings tons of different systems which we had to integrate. So we had to create a nice adapter patterns where we could integrate them seamlessly and much faster. Most of the hotel industry has standardized their own part of how we can bring hotel all the systems together, but each hotel has its own evolution also. So it becomes complex scenario where we have to integrate them, especially when we are looking at forward looking of new generation scenarios and see how it impacts the backend systems also. So that again created a very different outcome as a project where we had to create multiple streams just purely functioning towards integration. Now, integration happened from multiple sides, right? From device till how we can implement in the hotel, till integration of backend systems, till new generation things like voice-enabled mirror-based scenarios with till mobile-based wallet. Now, third one, the third one is very important part we had to go through to give a right experience. From the beginning, we had to do the automation. Right, it's not that we can implement and do the automation. What we implemented is an in-sprint automation for most of our use cases. Hardware had its own life cycle, but at the same time on the software side and integration side, we had to create the in-sprint automation to situate that as the things are changing and progressing, as the user stories are getting implemented, they are getting tested thoroughly. If one of the pieces is not working, it doesn't help in the end-to-end experience. So the robustness of the system, we had to go through as it is, we are creating a product rather than a project. So that's a different mindset we had to bring it to make this happen. Different types of testing, of course, everybody knows that we have to do it. It's such a complex scenario. The biggest challenge in testing was doing an actual implementation in a real life hotel and make it happen. And then you have to see to it that you test out in conjunction with customer to see to it that they are actually experiencing what we had thought of or what we had designed for. So from the testing part and verification part, it becomes very important that we do not forget the customer thought process inside. Now, last one is where the scale happens, right? Of course, you deploy it at one place. How do you deploy it again and again in multiple places? How do you centrally control this from your central command for all the hotels? Do you keep them in isolation or do you do it on your own, right? So there are multiple thought process which we had to go through, that each hotel has its own way of controlling it, or each hotel participates in our centralized solution, and centralized solution monitors them, manages them, and controls everything. So both the models were implemented so that we can bring the scalability. Of course, as any life cycle of technology, we had to, we'll find issues, we find defects, and we fix them, we push them on the backend side, we push them on the sensors of the world, we push them on the firmwares of the world, and of course application of the world. So which is a standard life cycle we have set up right now, and it's going on. I would say next 6 months you will start, as a user, will start seeing the difference. You will start seeing that how the new generation experience will create a real aha situation for any customer. Now, this is again, this is from the front end perspective or the user experience perspective for any users. When we look at the behind the scenes, there is much more complexity by which we have used IoT, and we'll talk about that in a next webinar. Now, were there any hurdles while doing implementation of this complex nature? Of course, there are multiple teams, multiple partners, ecosystem which was involved in it. Some were ready-made solutions which had to be customized. Some were just pure technology which we had to bring it. Some we had to do on our own. Multiple streams of devices, multiple development, so multiple streams of software side of the world, integration side of the world. So project governance became one of the biggest challenge, right? We knew that from the day one that it is going to be complex from implementation perspective, but it's very hard to estimate how many partner challenges you are going to get when you have this multi-partner scenario. At any point of time, more than 20 to 30 partners were working on this project, so you can imagine the complexity of it, right? Second biggest challenge is everyone has a say in any of this new generation experience, right? From your internal management till customer management, everyone has a say how to do it, what to do it, what would they like to have it. So how do you manage your requirements? So that became another challenge, because everyone thinks experience differently. Everyone thinks that they have idea, and everyone thinks they are the expert. So what we have to do is we have to go through the concept of customer first vision. Whatever we could be passionate about as a technologist, we have to see what would customer like and what would they get aha moment about. So we put those customer first vision first, and actually made the whole customer centricity oriented system, which is the one concept I would like to push to everyone, has worked beautifully. Security. Everyone knows that security becomes the biggest concern when there's IoT, and that was one of the drivers that some of the solutions or the hardware we had to implement was on our own, on top of which we managed the whole security layer, which were of course industry grade solutions, rather than just picking any hardware out of the box. It becomes very hard if where this device has come from, what is the security layer on top of it which they have implemented. Now when we go through a whole governance model of this, we would like to see that the security becomes #1 priority, and see to it that there are no issues in case there are scenarios which are security breach oriented. Now one big challenge, of course, were interoperability and integrations with different systems. Having different protocols, having different ways to communicate became a big challenge. But that is where the expertise of InfoStretch has worked beautifully to solve those issues. There were some out-of-the-box solutions. At the same time, there were homegrown protocols we had to implement on our own to solve this problem. Now, what happens is that because we had multiple data sources which are producing data, for example, each sensor produces its own data. You have your back-end systems which have tons of data. How do you manage them, right? How do you aggregate them? How do you make a sense out of them as a business? So that was another challenge, or a good challenge, which emerged out of it, right? On top of that, when you put a layer of rooms has its own data, then people have their own data as a person, and sensors are producing data. Now, one layer above, each hotel is producing this data, and then when you aggregate everything, becomes a very different beast altogether, which you have to manage it. But at the same time, that gives so much of intelligence to you that you can put real-time machine learning algorithms, at the same time trending algorithms on top of it to find out what are the trends happening, what are the ways people are using our system. And at the same time, one can give real new generation business aspect, that what can I cross sell on top of it. But dependency remains the same, that data becomes a huge, how do you test remains the huge. So by saying this, I would like to conclude that it's good to see that new generation technologies are now getting adopted by the mainstream industries, and they are all governed towards how we can change the user experience. And I would say that in next 6 months, you will start seeing this transformation and you will experience on your own.
Great, thanks so much, Manish. All right, and at this time, we would like to get your questions answered. And as a reminder, you can at any time ask a question utilizing the chat feature at the bottom of your screen. Manish, we do have a couple of questions for you that came in. First one, what were the decision drivers for in-house first ready solution?
So this is the typical scenario which an old industry, or I would say traditional industry, has to answer themselves. Do I want to build something on my own, or should I buy anything ready-made? Right? So it's a build versus buy question has happened for most of it. So the way I look at it, the industry is transforming themselves, that traditional business companies are looking, can I convert my company as a technology company? Right? Now, having those visions from top down helps a lot, because do I want to create IP? Can I sell it to different industries of the similar nature? Can I generate separate business out of it? So when you start, or when we start this project, those drivers actually helped us, that whenever you had a chance to develop on your own, develop it. In case it's a mammoth task, and ready solution which is meeting your requirements. For example, is it scalable? Can I monitor it? Can I support it remotely? So all those answers, is it secure? All those answers are, if it managed, we would go towards ready solutions. But whenever we thought that any of those criteria are falling short, we would go after our own implementation, and that helped to distinguish as a methodology from the day one, that any new solution, any new feature, go through this process. Then you will have an easier decision whether you want to use buy it or build it.
Great, thank you. And how did you manage to test this large solution end to end?
As I mentioned, it's one of the largest complex problem, right? So we had to literally implement a lab within our organization to see to mimic a hotel. To bring various systems together, create a whole in experience, as if you are in a hotel experience, bring in the right people to test it out. So that's one side of the world. Other side of the world is automate as much as possible. Automate. So automation has helped us a lot, and bringing the in-sprint automation kind of concept has shortened our SDLC life cycle. But at the same time, it has given us predictable that any changes are happening in the system, we know they are working fine. So bringing automation and creating labs has been one of the big driving factor in creating and solving this end-to-end testing of such a large solution.
Great, thanks so much. And I think we have time for one more question. Can you give some use cases which are solved for the behind the scenes?
I knew this question would come because we have not touched upon that subject yet, but I'll still give some glimpse of it. Behind the scene, a lot of complex logistics goes after, right? For example, do we have the inventory of the items we require? right? How do you check that? So there you want to create those inventory-based system very smart. Any food itself is a big logistics which hotel industry goes through, where do I have enough food to cater to enough people, and do I have raw material for that? How do I track how much do I have enough raw material or not? So there are smart systems implemented which are IoT driven in that. Hotel industry has many items which are floating around from room to place to conference room to conference room. So that brings especially the expensive items becomes a large or mammoth task for them to track where they are and who is using it. So we have put smart systems around it on top of each and every items to track them. Staff management becomes another challenge, where staff is constantly on the move. Now, how do you track who's where, who's the nearest by to answer or take care of the customer needs? So those smart concepts together has given tremendous amount of good experience, which are behind the scenes, what we call it, has helped give the customer the ultimate aha situation.
Great, thanks so much, Manish. All right, I believe that's all the questions we are able to answer at this time. Also, be sure to check out and subscribe to DTV. It's a new digital transformation channel that brings in new industry experts. Again, many thanks to our speaker, Manish, and thank you everyone for joining us today. You'll receive an email in the next 24 hours with the slide presentation and link to the webcast replay. And if you have any questions, please contact us at info@infostretch.com or call 1-408-727-1100 to speak with a representative. Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your day.